This is episode 12 with Amberly Lago. Your challenges don't define you. However, how you choose to handle them does. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Laugh at Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Gary Savoy. Having overcome medical trauma, I've made it my mission to uncover all of the secrets to overcoming life's challenges and living a better life. Each week, I will bring you an inspiring person or message. You'll hear from some of the most inspirational people on this planet, including those who have overcome adversity firsthand. My goal is to provide you with everything you need to conquer your challenges and to turn your struggles into strengths. As a personal trainer, wife, and mother, Amberly Lago was living the California dream until it turned into a nightmare in May 2010. As she rode her Harley down Ventura Boulevard, Amberly was hit by an SUV, throwing her 30 feet down a busy street and shattering her right leg. After a lengthy hospital stay and 34 surgeries later, doctors were able to fuse her leg together and repair her severed femoral artery despite the initial recommendation to amputate. However, due to the trauma of the injury, Amberly was diagnosed with a nerve disease called complex regional pain syndrome, also known as the suicide disease, and deals with chronic pain on a daily basis. In this episode, you'll learn how your whole life can change in the blink of an eye, and how Amberly has been able to stay strong despite undergoing 34 surgeries to save her leg. You'll also learn why Amberly asked for a chin-up bar to be installed in her hospital bed, and why having a purpose is essential in your recovery. Amberly and I also talk about the power of gratitude and how accepting her scars and new self-image gave her freedom, and why it's so important to embrace your vulnerabilities. We also talk about why we need to stop comparing ourselves to others. So without further ado, here is my interview with Amberly Lago. Hi, Amberly. Welcome to the Laugh at Adversity show. It's great to have you on here today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to have you on here because I know we connected probably about a year ago over Instagram. And I was fascinated with your story, everything that you overcame. And then I know you released a book recently, a book that I actually just read the past 2 days, True Grit and Grace. And I'd like to have you first start off by talking about, your accident, kind of the things that you went through, and maybe giving us a little bit of a backdrop of kind of what happened.
Okay, yeah. And thank you for reading the book. And my life out here in California was pretty darn perfect. I have, married, have 2 healthy children, and I was on my way home from work. It was a long weekend, and I was riding down Ventura Boulevard on my Harley Davidson. And, when you're riding a motorcycle, you ride pretty defensively. You want to make sure people see you. And I had made eye contact. Well, I thought it was eye contact with a guy. And he obviously didn't see me. And he made a left out of a parking lot, but he punched it. And I didn't have time to do anything except for let go of the clutch and try to jump off my motorcycle. Well, the SUV hit me. My leg took most of the impact, and I was thrown about 30 feet. And as I was sliding down Ventura Boulevard, I just thought, oh my God, please don't let another car hit me. I couldn't tell what I was sliding into or if another car was going to hit me. And I stopped. I immediately grabbed my leg and looked down, and it was like one of those horror movies where you see the blood gush out, and I found out later it was my femoral artery that had been severed in the impact, and my leg was just crumbled into pieces. And, in the blink of an eye, your whole life can change just like that. And I looked down, and it's kind of crazy what goes through your head. I thought, I was a personal fitness trainer, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to train clients on crutches for a while. And then I was like, oh my goodness, my husband's going to be so upset with me because I had his brand new backpack on, and I had a pulled pork sandwich in the backpack that a client had given me. And I thought pork's going to be everywhere. And I didn't know the severity of the accident at first, and I was going into shock. And so I immediately started screaming out, call 911, call my husband. And I started shouting out his phone number. And luckily, paramedics got there pretty quick. And when they loaded me up into the ambulance, my husband arrived at the scene too. And I kept looking at the paramedics to try to get some sort of confirmation I was going to be okay, or any sign or clue that, what was going on. And they wouldn't make eye contact with me. And I thought, okay, is it this bad? Am I going to die? Like, what's going on? And when I got to the hospital, the last thing I remember before they put me in a coma was I heard this man crying. I thought, what is that? I'd never heard anything like that before. And it was my husband. And now my husband is a big, tough guy. He's a lieutenant with the California Highway Patrol. He is trained to be a first responder, and I had never seen him cry.
Wow.
And there he was breaking down. And so I screamed out his name, Johnny, get over here. I need you to be strong for me. And he grabbed my hand. And waking up later, the first thing they told me was, we're going to have to amputate your leg. And that's probably the scariest thing, the worst thing you can hear, or one of the worst things you can hear, being a dancer my whole life, into track and field, professional fitness trainer and a fitness model. And I did fitness videos, to wake up and they're going to tell you, there's no other choice. Your leg there's no way we can repair it. We're going to have to amputate it. So that was the beginning of my recovery journey. Luckily, 34 surgeries later, they were able to save it.
Right. And I don't want to spoil anything in the book, but it's crazy to think that, everything that you went through all of those surgeries, like 34 surgeries is a lot. There's some people that are afraid to, just have one surgery, but you've had 34 surgeries, and all of them were kind of stages to sort of repair your leg and kind of put it back together, right?
Yeah. It was, I first thought, okay, it's a broken leg. We'll put a cast on it. I'll be on crutches to train my clients on crutches. These are the thoughts going through my head. And the doctor, my husband was sitting at the hospital one day, and he was sitting in the cafeteria at the hospital, and my surgeon walked up and he sat next to my husband, and my surgeon was apparently eating some soup, and he's trying to explain to my husband. He said, he grabbed a cracker and he broke it in half. He said, this is a break. He crumbled the other cracker and it fell into pieces in a soup. He said, this is what your wife has.
Wow.
He said, now I'm going to have to go in, and piece by piece, we're going to try to put this thing back together again. But we have a timeline. We have to do all this before it starts to die. And, so every surgery was, the first surgery was repairing my femoral artery. And thank God I had a vascular surgeon that did that. So that was the first step into even getting blood supply to the leg. And if you would have told me when I woke up from a coma, okay, we're going to do 34 surgeries, I probably would have just given up right there. And maybe I would have even said, 34 surgeries, why don't you go ahead and amputate it? You know what I mean? But I didn't know. Sometimes we only see a small piece of the picture, and sometimes that works out, I think, for our benefit, and sometimes it can work out, it's all a change in perspective, and how, we don't always see the big picture until it unravels and unfolds, and then the big picture is revealed. But thank goodness, 34 surgeries, I just had to do one surgery at a time. And because like you said, surgery can be very scary. You never know. There can be complications of infection, or there's a risk with any kind of surgery. I just had to focus on small steps, like some days it was just like, okay, I would wake up and be, oh, I'm so hungry, but I know I can't eat all day because my surgery's scheduled at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I would just focus on my mental, trying to get through the day and, getting through the pain before that next surgery. And then I would have a day to recover, and then they would take me in and do another surgery. So it was just like day by day and what I could do to make myself stronger in every way, physically, spiritually. So whether that was praying, whether that was, I think the doctor thought I was probably a little crazy because I asked them if he could install a chin-up bar in the hospital room so I could still continue to do pull-ups for my upper body. And that wasn't necessarily just to do pull-ups to keep my upper body strong so I could be able to use the bedpan on my own. It was also I needed to do something to make me feel a little more normal. I mean, I know normal is, maybe not the right word, but make me feel like I was before when I was working out every day.
Right.
And so it was just as much for my mental as it was for my physical.
Right. Yeah. You were a very active person, and I know you mentioned that you were a track athlete, professional dancer, and I know even you talk in the book that even in the gym you used to outcompete some of the guys. So I'm sure that having that pull-up bar helped you kind of get some of the endorphins flowing and at least give you a little bit of comfort.
Yes, exactly. In fact, you mentioned endorphins. An interesting thing happened when I woke up out of a coma and I was in the first hospital before I got transferred. The vascular surgeon came over to me and he said, now, this will be just between you and I. He said, do you have a drug problem? Do you take drugs? And I said, well, no, sir. I've never done a drug in my life. And he said, well, are you an athlete? And I was like, well, the ego part of me was like, well, couldn't you tell? And I'm like, no. I said, yeah, I'm an athlete. I said, I work out every day. I said, I run 5 to 10 miles a day. He said, that explains it. He said, you had so many endorphins. You must have so many endorphins, which are those feel-good hormones, that we had a hard time knocking you out. And so that was really interesting to me to know that just how powerful those endorphins are. And, that was something I needed. That was my drug of choice to feel good was, endorphins. So I really had to reinvent myself because it was going to be a long time before I could work out the way I did.
Right. How long of a timeline was it from the accident and, you waking up to when you could actually get back into the gym?
I got home. I was in the hospital the first time about 3.5 months. And I would say 2 weeks after I got out and got home from the hospital, I went to the gym in my wheelchair. And my leg was still all bandaged up and I still had a PICC line. And I looked just emaciated. I looked sick. And, I'd lost 20 pounds in the hospital of just, my muscles had just melted away and people looked at me like I was crazy to be in my wheelchair in the gym working out. And then I remember there was one time I was in the back room and one of my best friends who was also a trainer, we had something called a TRX where you can hold these ropes and do exercises. And I was standing up. I could only stand for about 10 seconds at a time because of the pain. Mm-hmm. But my husband came in the back room and he saw me standing on one leg holding these ropes. And he looked at the trainer and he said, that's it. I've had it. If something happens to her, if she gets broken again, you can take her home. And we both looked at each other and I was like, oh my gosh. Because he had been through so much with, and one slip and fall, I would have been back in the hospital. But I just so wanted to get back into the routine of working out and feeling good and, having a purpose, I think is just so essential to recovery, and fitness was my passion. And I feel like when you can align your passion and your purpose together, it gives you a reason to get out of bed. It gives you a reason to continue on. It's a big motivator. So that was that was like my little happiness pill, was to be able to work out again. I wasn't doing nearly, not a fraction of what I used to do before, but, I think it's really, really important to, celebrate those small victories, that I was able to stand up for 15 seconds instead of 10 seconds, that I was able to work out for 30 minutes on my upper body versus 10 minutes the day before or the week before, so I think it's really important to celebrate those small victories.
Right. So I would imagine, going from a dancer, you were also a model at some point. And I would imagine going from being so active and, having this image of yourself and then having such a grotesque injury, I would imagine that must have put you in some sort of depression, not only from your inability to do the things that you used to do, but also what your leg looked like after, having 34 surgeries.
Oh yeah, my leg, from the hip down, from the hip to the knee is scarred from skin grafts from the knee to my feet, my toes, because my foot was completely off of my leg. It was only on by the skin.
Wow.
And, my calf muscle is now on the front of my leg. I had compartment syndrome. So it's really deformed. And to go from, using, being a dancer and an athlete, and, I really took my good health for granted, I guess I could say, because I worked really hard to be able to do what I could do. But as I lie in that hospital bed, there was one night, and I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I was watching, there was not much on TV, and I was watching this infomercial, and it was about how to get a Brazilian butt. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to have a Brazilian butt. And I started getting into like this real pity party. And I thought, you know what? I can sit here in the dark and feel sorry for myself of, how deformed my leg and how scarred and what it's going to, and at this point, I still had no idea just exactly what it was going to look like. But I just thought, there's no way I'll ever be doing infomercials with Body by Jake anymore. There's no, if he still does infomercials, I'll never, but I just thought all these things. I had just done a fitness video the day before my accident, and I thought those days are over. And I thought, here, I can either keep going down that road of despair, or I can do something to make sure that I stay in a place of, being in a positive place. And that's when I thought, I've got to start really getting grateful. And I got out a notepad and I started writing down everything I was grateful for. And I mean, that was the nurses, that were coming in and taking care of me. That was the flowers that were sitting right beside me. That was for my family. That were my friends, my clients. I was grateful that I had a window that I could look and at least see a little bit of outside from my hospital room, because I didn't know how long it was going to be before I got to smell fresh air again. So once you start really focusing on what you're grateful for, there's not any room for self-pity or feeling sorry for yourself. And it really helped me spiral out of that depression. But when I got out of the hospital and really started to have to, what I call, what's my new normal, accept my new normal, that was really hard. That took me longer than a night in the hospital being grateful. That took me years of finally not trying to cover up my scars, and finally not hating, not hating my leg. Hate's a 4-letter word in our family. And I've decided I hated my leg. I hated that it didn't work properly. I hated that it gave me so much pain. I hated the way it looked. And I had to, the only thing that really started to change that for me was one day I went to go see Dr. Wiss, who's the doctor that saved my leg. And I went in, I was in there for a routine visit, and he put my leg on top of his white coat, and he rubbed it. He looked at my leg like it was an art piece, like it was his masterpiece. And from that moment on, I thought, well, my goodness, if he can look at that like it's a piece of art, well, then I can start to love it again. And it slowly started to shift my perspective, and I could start to love my leg again. And that's what really began my healing journey, was just that self-acceptance. Because once you own your scars or your imperfections, no one can really use them against you. And I wanted my daughters to, I would not want them to be embarrassed or hide something about themselves. I want them to be proud of who they are, because I sure am proud of them. But what kind of example was I setting for them? So now my kids know that, they don't they don't have to feel funny about my scars, because I don't. Now I can finally go to the beach and wear a bathing suit. I can finally wear shorts, but it took a while, but it really is where I started to heal emotionally from it.
Did you find a sense of freedom when you allowed yourself to be vulnerable with, getting over the scars and what they looked like and how your leg was operating?
I think, there's that saying I always heard as a kid, and I never quite got it until now, until I started accepting, is that saying, the truth will set you free. I felt such freedom. It was like just a load being lifted, that I didn't have to, I was pretending that I wasn't in pain. And it's not that I go around, complaining about my pain, but I don't try to hide it. I was trying to hide it. I was trying to always cover up my scars. I was always trying to, God forbid anybody knew there was something wrong. I remember just, I was going on a field trip with my youngest daughter, and I had such fear and anxiety about what other moms would think, because I knew we were going to the zoo, and I knew I was going to have to rent one of those scooters, those motorized scooters.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, oh my goodness, they're going to know something's wrong with me. They're going to ask questions. Oh, and I just went in, I got my little scooter, and I just made it fun. And to my surprise, when you own it and go, yeah, I've got something going on with my leg, so I've got a scooter. And I started giving the other kids turns on driving the scooter. I'd let them ride around, and we didn't kill anybody, but we came close. But I became like the fun mom. Like they were waiting in line. Oh, I want to ride with Ruby's mom. I want to go on that scooter with her. So it just was another reinforcement that, just be yourself and own who you are and embrace your vulnerabilities. And in the end, those vulnerabilities will give you the courage, and it will also teach others that they can have the courage. It was just so different. I grew up, in Texas, where we had sayings like cowgirl up and suck it up and get her done. And one of my favorites was hide your crazy and be a lady. And that's what, those deep rooted sayings, they carried me through a lot. They got me through a lot of that hospital stay. But then as I got out and had to start healing, not just physically, but like emotionally, that wasn't working for me anymore. And I had to learn to be vulnerable and ask for help, know when to ask for help, accept help. And, that was really hard for me. But it's really important to have that community of people around you,
How has that changed your life, where before you were probably reluctant to ask for help, and now that you're able to ask for help, has it made life easier for you?
Yeah, I think it has. It's still, to me, And I still struggle with this. I'm not going to lie. I still struggle. Like, and for some reason, it's the hardest for me to ask my husband. I don't know why, but I've really had to, like, especially with my book launch, um, launching a book is it's busy, but I didn't know it was going to be this busy. And I've had to ask for help, and I've had to ask him for help. And it's like, I think before it made me feel like, well, if I have to ask for help, then I must not be very strong. But no, it takes courage to ask for help. It takes a lot of courage to ask for help. And what I've learned through my recovery journey, and especially with social media being the platform that it is, I have connected with so many other who I call sister warriors and brothers that have the same nerve disease. And I always say that we're stronger together. By ourselves, we're strong, but together we're unstoppable. And so I have learned, I guess, the hard way.
Right.
This has taught me this whole recovery journey has taught me so much. I mean, I was always a humble person, but let me tell you, when you rely on someone to have to carry your bedpan for you for weeks and weeks at a time, it humbles you beyond belief. And I want to stay in that place of being humbled because I'm so appreciative of that support system that I have around me and all the people that have helped me. I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be able to do the things that I can do without the help of my friends, my clients. Like, after my accident, I needed my clients more than they needed me. I needed a reason to get up every morning because I needed my family to need me. I needed my clients to want to train with me. I needed that purpose. But I think too, it makes my husband feel good when I ask him for help, because everybody likes to feel needed.
Right. No, I think that's a really good point. And I'd like to touch on the nerve disease. So you have chronic regional pain syndrome, which is also coined as the suicide disease, right?
Yes.
How does that impact you, like, on a daily basis?
Well, when I was first diagnosed, I was so proud when I walked into that doctor's office because I was finally upright and on crutches, only to be diagnosed with this incurable nerve disease that's ranked highest on the pain scale. And that's why it's called the suicide disease, because there's no known cure and the pain is worse than passing a kidney stone or childbirth or amputation. And it's just constant. And although I've had many treatments, there's no known cure yet.
Mm-hmm.
On an everyday basis, and that's the thing too. It's like I try to be so strong, and my husband knows it's really bad. Well, he can just look at me and look in my eyes and tell when I'm having a really bad day. But my CRPS, it's caused from trauma. And usually it affects your limbs. My CRPS is in my right leg, mostly actually my right foot. And so it's like imagining having like a vice grip on your foot, like nonstop. So if you had, or, imagine if you had a really bad toothache and you had to really concentrate on something at work, or you had to be in a good mood or have a lot of patience. Like, it affects so much. It affects on some days when I'm at my worst, my ability to work the way I'd like to work. Although I'm just grateful I get to work. There are people that I know with CRPS that aren't able to work at all. I'm able to train a handful of clients and I'm able to do life coaching because I can sit and prop my leg up doing that. But, it affects me. Like, I have to wear certain shoes. If I have a shoe that's too tight, it can set the nerve disease off. It affects me where, on, like, when I travel, I have to think about, the suitcase I'm going to roll instead of carry. It's so much to the effect. I had a doctor say, it's a good thing that you really eat healthy and work out, because if you gain too much weight, you would be in a constant flare up because of the extra weight on your leg. And that's another thing. I've changed my whole eating. I thought I ate pretty healthy before, but now I eat to feel good. So I eat an anti-inflammatory diet. But it's also impacted me in a way where I have so much compassion for others with diseases or incurable diseases or chronic pain. I've always had some compassion towards anyone who's disabled because my brother's in a wheelchair and has been his whole life. So I've always had that. But when you are reliant on a wheelchair, like if I go to an amusement park or anything like that, I'm reliant on a wheelchair. It really shifts your perspective. So I think in that way, it's really impacted me on a level of being a lot more understanding, being more patient, and working on different things to try to manage my pain. I've had to, I used to suck it up all the time. I was taught growing up, you push through the pain. As an athlete, you train harder, not smarter. Well, all the mottos, all that stuff, that went out the window. With CRPS, it's all about balance. So in my life now, it has impacted me in a way to where I strive. And I say I strive because I don't have it down. It's my biggest challenge is balance. And that is doing enough, but not doing too much.
Right.
With all that, eating the right things, sleeping enough, it's all, self-care. So it's in, like I said, I'm still working on that. Still working on that balance.
Do you have a way to, because it seems like it's a pretty tough, disease to be experiencing pain all the time. Do you have a routine, whether it's like a gratitude journal that you do every morning? Do you have something that kind of sets you up to have a positive mindset during the day, or maybe something that you can do when you're feeling that pain to kind of reduce it?
Yeah, and I go through like a list of things for pain, but for sure, I start with before my feet even hit the floor in the morning. I say my prayers, and I say prayers for others. I say them for me, and whether you're praying to a big old oak tree outside, or whatever, whoever your God is, power is, I have. This has all led me to really connect to a higher power because I had to really surrender to the pain. I had to, I couldn't do it by myself. I had to turn it over to a higher power to take some of that burden off of me. So I pray. Every morning I go downstairs and I have my coffee and I read. I have several spiritual books that mostly affirmations, and I read. So before I check out my Instagram or any email, before I do anything, I always start my day off with reading, and then I journal. Even if it's only a paragraph, I will do a journal, whether it's my gratitude list, which every night my daughter and I we lay in bed and we go down the list of what we're grateful for. And hers is usually her pony every single night, but we still go through that. And then I have a list I have a toolbox that I call it. And it's like, okay, I got to make sure I have on comfy shoes. Well, these pants are too tight and they're flaring it up. I got to make sure I have comfy clothes on. If that's still not working, then maybe I need to lighten my load and not train as many people that day. Or, I make sure that if it's like yesterday, it was bad in the middle of the day, I took a salt bath. And I have different salts that I use. Excuse me. And so I took a bath in the middle of the day. And I know that some of us don't have that luxury, and I usually don't. But when your pain gets so bad, it's like I push and it'll talk to me. And if I don't start listening, I've learned and I've ended up being in the hospital. So now I've had to learn to listen to my body and go, okay, maybe as much as I need to go to the mall to go pick up this, run that errand, that's not really an option for me today because I'm going to be in so much pain later. So it's really about going through those, making good decisions to try to keep your pain at bay. And then I find I really need some quiet time. So if you can set up, like for me, I set up I have a really like a nice small office and I have candles. I have like all my favorite things, pictures of my kids. I've got my favorite, healing stones. I say whatever makes you feel good, take time to do that and just breathe and then start it all over again. What works someday may not work for you that minute. So try something else. And, sometimes, I'm always open for suggestions. And one day I couldn't get my flare up to stop at all. It didn't matter what I did. And my husband just go stick your leg in the swimming pool. It was December. It was freezing. And I said, okay, I'm going to try it. And I went and I stuck my leg in that cold water and it changed my burning, stabbing pain to ice cold, and it started to reset the nervous system because it's a disease of the sympathetic nervous system. It's like a computer that needs to be rebooted, for lack of a better term. And so, I just say whatever works for you, whatever works, whether it's your diet, your lifestyle. Like for me, I work out because it makes me feel good and it keeps me sane. I know that I can deal with the pain more. I'm going to the gym and at least working out my upper body. I'm not sitting at home thinking about how bad my leg hurts. That just works for me. My husband will say sometimes, why don't you just stay home and put your leg up? And I'm like, because then I'm just going to focus on the pain. So I think distraction works. You know how when a little kid falls down and they skin their knee, and if you were to look at them and say, oh, your knee, it's bleeding, look at it, they'd freak out. But if you go, oh, yeah, let's put a Band-Aid on it. Now look how pretty the sky is. Isn't it a beautiful day? Then it's not as bad, So I don't know. I feel like sometimes maybe I'm a little kid and that works for me.
So it sounds like it's kind of a combination of, whether it's pain or even maybe say stress that might be a little bit more relatable. It seems like you kind of, you have to listen to your body, and then there are multiple methods of trying to kind of help cope with either the pain or the stress. And you also have to kind of make some adjustments too to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your book. So you just released it, or it's coming out soon?
Well, you know what? It is, True Grit and Grace is released April 17th, which is only a few weeks away. But just today, I started getting all these text messages and direct messages on Instagram and then some on Facebook of people like taking a picture of their book and they're saying it came in the mail today. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are reading it. Oh my God. So it's exciting. So yeah, it's on sale, but apparently people are already getting it, people that pre-ordered it. And so it's exciting.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I will make sure to, add a link to as well in the show notes. As far as connecting with you on social media, where can people find you?
They can find me at amberlylago.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter because I love being connected. I just love being connected with others. Instagram is Amberly Lago Motivation, and Twitter is Amberly Lago, LinkedIn Amberly Lago, and my Facebook page is Motivational Speaker Amberly Lago.
I will have to say you do like being connected because you get so many comments on your Instagram posts, and I have no idea how you respond to all of them.
Oh, the other day I looked and I had 500 comments. And I want to like comment, not because I do love, like I've met people on Instagram like you. As soon as I saw your page, I just love all your posts, and I was like, I'm president of your fan club. And but I love responding to people, and my husband's like, you can't keep this up. What are you going to do when you get more comments? And I'm like, well, I want to answer everybody because they mean a lot to me. So yeah, it's keeps you busy for sure.
I have two final questions for you.
Okay.
So the first one is, what is your definition of adversity and what does it mean to you?
Okay. Well, adversity to me, it means any kind of a challenge or a struggle, but most certainly when it's unexpected. That seems like when I think of adversity, it's like I was not expecting to be hit by a car or an SUV, but that can mean anything. Like, honestly, adversity can be, for me, the other day my computer crashed, and that was adversity. I was like, how do I deal with this? What am I going to do? And, for me, that is just, okay, what action steps can I do? I have to start right where I am, use what I have and just do what I can. And then I just try to go from that point forward. But yeah, adversity to me is any kind of a challenge, whether it be a broken bone or a hacked email account.
I like that definition. So the final question is, what are 3 tips that you can give someone who's facing challenges in their life right now?
I would say own your story. And by that, I mean really look at where you are. For me, I was able to move forward when I started admitting and embracing my scars and my pain and the fact that I have a incurable disease. I was able to start to really heal and move forward and meet others who also were struggling, and then we could connect and we could relate, and all of a sudden we go, hey, you too? I'm like, yeah, me too, I struggle with that. And it just gives you can start to really begin to truly heal. And but I've also found to just stop comparing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say stop comparing, that means stop comparing like for me, I can't compare myself to anybody else's accomplishments or anybody else's disease and where they are in their disease. But it also means I can't, I have to stop comparing what I used to do to what I do now, because that will lead you into just a spiraling road of despair, because I would sit there and go, oh my gosh, I used to run 10 miles a day. We got to stop doing the coulda, woulda, shoulda and focus on, really what you can do now and celebrate those accomplishments. I think that when we start comparing, it's never good. There's always going to be somebody that's braver, or somebody that's smarter, or someone that has more money, or someone that is doing more. We can't ever really, some people start a family at 40. Some people, and they're happy with that. Some people are in a family at 40, but they're not happy. Like, we all have our differences, And so I think that's what I would do. And I think one more thing, what would I do? Oh, I would say just get grateful and get gritty. Like, if you're grateful and you really put your heart into taking action and get gritty, then you're unstoppable.
Right. I like those because I think the comparison trap is a dangerous place to be. And then, of course, I think, getting gritty is really important. I think that's, kind of what helped you get to where you are. So I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge you for being able to, overcome the accident, and then the 34 surgeries, and then also for, being an inspirational and motivational speaker, and, a light for someone who has CRPS and helping others, you know, find purpose in what they do and be able to overcome, such a tough disease, and then also putting everything into your book and sending that out to people so, it can impact and change their lives. So just thank you for everything that you've done.
Oh, thank you, Gary. I really appreciate you having me on the show. I've been a real big fan of yours. And so being on your podcast is really a true honor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. If you guys enjoyed today's show with Amberly, then make sure you go and head over to laughatadversity.com/12. There you can find all the links to everything that we talked about, including the link to Amberly's book and her social media accounts. Also, if you've been enjoying these episodes, then make sure you head over to iTunes or your podcast player and leave a rating and review. It's the easiest way for the show to be found by others and help change their lives too.